Gotcha.
Awesome.
All right, recording is going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. So today we're just going to do an overview of financial aid. And we're going to talk about both applications. We're going to talk about both FAFSA and TASFA. So we're going to go over both of those. And I'm going to try to find a way to do in-person workshops for FAFSA, but I'm still in the works for that. So stay tuned. So if you're like after this presentation, like really excited about doing FAFSA, do contact me, but know that we are going to set up some things for you guys at the school. We're going to have to get a little creative, but we're going to definitely support you guys in actually applying for this as well. So just keep that in mind. So what is financial aid? So when people talk about financial aid, we are really talking about money to help you pay for college or a career school. So there's going to be grants, work study, loans, and scholarships that are all going to be available to you to make those things a little bit more affordable, right? And we're going to go into what all of those things mean and how they're different from each other a little bit further in the presentation. So a lot of times my presentations are a little bit more like personal, and I really enjoy like talking a lot about, you know, social and emotional aspects about in our lives and how that relates to career. Unfortunately, my financial aid application one is a little bit more cut and dry. And so it's just, I'm going to run through it, guys. I don't want you to feel like you have to understand every single thing I'm saying. Just the fact that I have a spot in advisory tonight to be able to tell all of you guys about financial aid is huge, because typically before my position existed, it would just be these conversations with your life coach. And so I want you to share these things that you're learning with your family and with your friends, just because I know that this is something that a lot of people are curious about. I'm going to go right in with the two applications and what they are and how they're different, because I think that's really, really important. So the FAFSA is a federal application that is online, and that financial aid application is going to be available for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. TASFA is a state application that is a paper application, and that application is for Texas residents, those who might have DACA status, or those who might not have a social security number or a work permit. Now, students can only fill out one application. So for example, if I'm a US citizen and a Texas resident, I cannot fill out both FAFSA and TASFA. I'm only allowed to fill out one, right? And so if you fall into this category, you will do FAFSA, and that will be an online application. If you fall into the Texas resident category, you will do TASFA, and we will actually do that application on paper. Now, if you have questions about this, I ask you to call me or email me after this presentation just to protect privacy. This can be something that a lot of people don't feel comfortable really talking about right away, but I still want you to get support, right? I still want you to be able to work with me and have your questions answered. And so just please make sure that you reach out to me at the end of this presentation. I'm going to go into, we're going to start off by just talking about some common misconceptions. And so a lot of times these presentations are like really detailed in the beginning, and then this stuff is just kind of like a little bit extra, but I'm going to start with this. I think it might be really helpful. Okay, so we're going to start out with myth number one. Myth number one is only students with good grades get financial aid. It's actually a pretty realistic thing to think. I can see why that would be something that would be in your mind. But I'm here to let you know that, you know, your grades do not impact your financial aid. So if you have really good grades, if you have a high GPA, it might help you with scholarships, right? But federal student aid programs and state aid programs, they don't take grades into consideration. So when you graduate from high school, no one is going to look at your grades to determine how much financial aid you get, right? There will be scholarships that you can fill out, but that won't be a factor in your eligibility to receive aid at all. Myth number 2, I don't have good credit, so I won't be eligible for financial aid. That is also going to be a myth, right? Applying for FAFSA or TASFA, they don't ever check your credit report. And so you never have to think about what's my credit score, or are they going to do a new inquiry on my credit, or maybe you have outstanding credit. That has absolutely nothing to do with FAFSA or TASFA, and it will not be considered at all. Here's another really common, very, very common misconception. So my age makes me ineligible for federal or state aid. Like, I'm just too old. Like, I don't think I can get aid because of my age. And the truth is that there are eligibility requirements, but things like age, not going to be a factor for you at all. So again, another thing to just kind of keep in mind. Myth number 4, my parents are not US citizens, so there's no way I'm going to get aid. It's also a very common myth. The truth is that your parents' citizenship status is not a factor, right? The FAFSA and the TASFA, they're not going to ask you about that. And if your parents do not have a social security number, you can actually enter zeros on the FAFSA form when it asks for their social. And on the TASFA, you do something very similar to that. So your parents' citizenship status will not affect your ability to get aid, both federal and state. Myth number 5. If I apply for FAFSA or TASFA, I'm going to have student debt. So the truth is that applying for financial aid does not equal immediate debt, right? Most of the motivation to apply is to see if you're eligible for those grants or that free money that you don't have to pay back. So this really helps you make the right decision on, what are my career goals? Am I able to have financial aid to cover them, right? And there's a lot of money out there. It's just a matter of applying at the right time. And so basically applying for the FAFSA or TASFA it's going to allow you to have more options to choose from, right? You don't know if you're eligible until you apply, right? But you never immediately have to take out loans or anything like that. And so a lot of people equate these applications with debt, but I'm here to tell you that is definitely not the case. And we'll talk more about what those loans mean and how to differentiate your packages, your financial aid packages. So that's just one thing I definitely wanted to cover today. Myth number 6 is that I can submit the FAFSA or the TASFA anytime. And the truth is that the sooner you submit, the better, right? So they kind of say like FAFSA is like Black Friday, right? The people that show up first are going to have that best chance, right? So colleges kind of like award aid on a first come, first serve basis. So you really want to have a sense of urgency in applying for financial aid because that money is first come, first serve. And so you're always going to be better off applying early if you can. Myth number 7. The FAFSA and TASFA is really long and confusing. There's just no way I'm going to be able to do that. But it's not as bad as you think. And it's actually gotten a lot better. They've done a lot of work to shorten the FAFSA and the TASFA. But one thing that you guys have is support, right? don't worry that you have to complete all of this on your own. You're going to have support from us at the Excel Center. And really, as long as you have the right stuff with you, it really does only take like 20 minutes. And so it's sometimes just about finding the right documents that you need and then just sitting down and doing it. So really, it's not that bad. And you guys have a lot of support. So we're going to just kind of shift from the misconceptions into, you know, deeper dive into financial aid, what it means, what documents you need, all that kind of stuff. So one thing I really wanted to make sure that you guys understand is that when you do a FAFSA or a TASFA, you are applying for financial aid to multiple programs. So both of those applications allow you to put up to 10 different schools on there. So you can apply to multiple programs, which is really cool. Most of you guys are going to be applying to Austin Community College because we're all going to start out at that associate's level. And Peloton U is also going to be an opportunity for a lot of students. And I have some really good information later in my presentation about how they use financial aid. It's just a really, really cool program. Now, with Austin Community College, one thing that is important to keep in mind is that you're doing financial aid, not necessarily just for an associate's degree, right? Maybe not just for that, you know, college degree, but those who might be interested in certifications, this is a great way to get financial aid for them. ACC offers probably the most certification programs, I think, than anywhere in Austin, right? They have so many different certification programs to choose from. And so your financial aid is going to be dependent on the cost of that particular certification program. There are only a small group of certifications that are not eligible for FAFSA or TASFA. And I will actually share those with y'all right now. So if I go to the website at ACC, can you guys see my screen for ACC okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if we look here, these are eligible programs and classes for financial aid. So if we look here where it says ineligible programs, these are the only programs that are not eligible for aid. And some of these are, I would say, mostly like tech, so coding and design, electrical construction, what else we got? Pharmacy tech, retail management level 1, nanoelectronics, marine engine repair. So as you guys can see, this list is really small, right? And if a student was interested in, say, electrical construction or even pharmacy tech, there are other programs in Austin that we could help you with. So don't let that be what keeps you. I'm only giving you guys this example because ACC is saying that we will cover mostly all our certification programs, right? It's just the small list that they won't. Now, some of them are considered to be partially eligible, meaning that you can use financial aid for some of the cost. But again, it's a pretty short list, right? And so if a student was interested in something like automotive tech or, you know, the sonography here, that's something that you would work with me on and your life coach, and we can definitely find options for you. So anyway, what I think is pretty cool is that ACC does cover a majority of these programs with FAFSA and TASFA, right? So I want y'all to think a little bit outside the box when we're talking about FAFSA and TASFA. We're really just talking about programs that are going to be available to you at ACC and like other colleges like Peloton U. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now,
Carolyn, we had a really good question from Mohammed.
Yes.
If I haven't graduated yet, can I apply? If I haven't graduated high school yet, can I apply for financial aid?
Yes, the answer is yes, but it depends on when you graduate. So I will talk more about that. I think that's like my next slide. Thank you for asking that question. Amazing. I appreciate it. That is like the biggest goal, right? Okay, another thing I wanted y'all to keep in mind is that other programs will require you to fill out a FAFSA. So a program called Capital Idea helps students pay for literally everything at ACC. And I will talk much more in depth about Capital Idea, but some of you guys might know about Capital Idea because they came to speak at career fairs last year. And so if you guys know about them already and you're interested in Capital Idea, you have to do FAFSA or TASFA. So just keep that in mind. A lot of programs require you to do it. So sometimes it's just good to knock it out. So this is exactly what the question was, right? So you actually apply for these applications for both FAFSA and TASFA a year before you attend school. So if you decided to apply with us, you are actually applying for the 2021-2022 school year. If you decided to apply next year, you're applying for the 2022-2023 school year, right? So you are actually putting in an application a year before you start school. And that's what makes college and career planning a little bit difficult, right? We kind of need to have a little bit of an idea of where we want to be in order to know to apply. So a lot of the barriers that students experience after they graduate from high school are trying to pay for certification programs, trying to pay for college, right? So if you do this a year in advance, you're really setting yourself up to be able to pay that tuition, to be able to attend those programs without having to pay out of pocket, okay? And keep in mind that there's 2 entry points at ACC. So when you do these applications, you're applying for both, but you can attend in August in the fall semester, or you can start attending in the spring semester in January, right? So for example, if I were going to be graduating at the end of this year in May, but I wanted to take a little bit of a break, you know, I didn't necessarily want to start college 2 months later, right? I kind of wanted to give myself some time. So I think January might be a better time for me to start. Still do this application. You can accept aid for only the spring semester if you would like. So that's just something that I really wanted you guys to be aware of. Now, Peloton U is a little bit different. Peloton U has ongoing enrollment. So you can start school at Peloton U, I think like every 6 weeks they bring on new students. So that's another one of their really, really amazing benefits, guys, is that you have so much more flexibility on when you start. So if you are going to graduate this year, sometime in May, right? Or maybe even in the spring, or even next term, I recommend you do this application. It's going to make planning for after high school so much easier. And it's not only if you're just wanting to go to college. These applications, like I said, help you cover the cost for certification programs, right? So it's definitely a good thing to have to do. And then I want to break down the different kinds of aid. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time before you fully understand it. I think that for me, it took some time to fully understand. And don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get it right away. And this is something I would like to revisit in my workshops. So we're going to start out with loans, right? So loans are money you have to pay back. It's kind of an obvious word, right? Loaning you money, meaning that you have to pay that money back. Grants are money that you do not have to pay back. Grant is a different word, right? We're not really used to using that word very much. But when you hear the word grant, they are granting you the money, right? So you're not expected to pay grants back ever. Now, work study is another kind of award that you might see, and those are part-time jobs for students with financial need. So it allows them to earn money to help them pay for expenses related to their education. But ACC says, hey, we have a job for you. You don't have to go look for a job. We want to pay you to do this job and you can work with us. And so it's a really, really awesome opportunity. I was awarded work study like my first, my second or third year in college. And it was such a great job. Work study is really cool because when you work at a university or a campus, a college campus, they know that you're in school, right? And so they understand that they have to be flexible with your schedule. They understand that you might be busy during midterms and finals. And in general, they're just much easier to work with as a student. So work study is a yes, for sure. Scholarships are not included in FAFSA. This is another really big misconception. So you can apply for a scholarship, but a scholarship will be a completely separate application. Scholarships are also money that is given to you to pay for your education, but is not required for you to ever pay back. So just kind of an overview on these four things. And at this point, I do kind of want to open it up to see if anyone has any questions so far.
There was a question in the chat, but I did just answer it. Is it too late for me to apply for financial aid to start on college 2021, 2022?
No, it's not too late. The application just opened, actually. So you're right on target. The application opened on October 1st. So it's only been open for like 2 weeks. And we're not too late. Like really, as long as you get it in before December, you're totally fine. Yeah. And so yes, that is exact. You are the exact person that we would want to do FAFSA, right? If you're going to be graduating this year, it's a really good idea to do it. So yes, the answer is yes. It's not too late. Okay. Any other questions so far? I'll keep going. Okay, so why you should not take out loans for your first 2 years, right? I highly recommend not taking out any loans. Number one, you are taking general education classes to start. Most of you guys are going to go into like general ed, right? Like math, science, English. It's not really a good time to start out taking loans out because that first year is going to really be all about exploration. You might go into it thinking, I'm going to be a history major. And then you quickly realize that maybe that isn't for you, right? And so what you don't want to do is have, no degree, but also have student debt, right? You really want to wait to take out loans until later on in your education, if at all, right? So you really want to leave that room for other kinds of opportunities. But it's not necessarily a good time for you guys to start taking loans out to attend your first year at ACC. ACC is also very much affordable. It costs about $1,200 per semester, so about $2,500 for the year. And there's ways that you can take few classes and make payment plans. There's lots of different ways to pay for it. So I just really recommend that you guys do not take out loans for your first 2 years. And then just like, when would taking a loan out be a good idea, right? That might be a good idea when you are in a bachelor's or a master's program. And so, in our last presentation, we talked about how, your associate's degree is a 2-year degree, a bachelor's degree is a 4-year, and then your master's can take 1 to 2 years after a bachelor's, right? So you don't really want to take out loans in your associate's level. You want to wait until you're furthering your education. The other thing to keep in mind is that what you're studying makes a big impact on the loans that you take out, right? So with what you're studying, if you look up careers in that field, are you going to be able to realistically pay back loans? So when people talk a lot about student financial aid, you might hear a lot of stuff of like the student debt crisis, right? Where it's like this crisis where people have so much student debt. The problem with that is that some jobs don't have super high incomes, right? So even like a middle class income, anywhere from like $30,000 to $60,000, makes it really hard to pay lots of money per month to pay back loans, right? But if you are getting a professional degree like an engineer, if you want to be a doctor one day or a lawyer, you're sometimes forced to take out loans. But because your income is so high, remember doctors make over $100,000 a year, it's a little bit easier to pay back those loans. So it's not a simple answer, right? It's a personal choice, number one. And if you have more questions about this, I definitely think it's worth exploring, but it's something that, it's going to just depend on so many different factors, guys. But for where you guys are right now, going into ACC, going into certification programs and starting your career, I don't think taking loans out is something that you want to consider right now. But know that later on in life, it can help you get to where you want to be, right? A lot of us had to take out loans for our position, for our degrees. If you talk to many of us, we would probably do things a little bit different. Some of us wouldn't, and so talk to people about it. Open up those conversations. You will find that everyone has a little bit of a different experience with it. And a lot of times, if you guys do things, if you guys take a lot of the support that you have, there are ways to get through a bachelor's program without debt. There are ways to do it without debt. It just sometimes takes a little bit more time, a little bit more work, and a little bit more research. But options are definitely out there. But don't let it deter you from furthering your education. I also wanted to tell you guys that student debt is very different than other kinds of debt, right? So it's not like a credit card. It's not like a paying on your car loan. They have fixed interest rates, meaning that the interest rate never changes. There's lots of different forgiveness programs, and there's ways to defer your debt and ways that you can't do with like credit cards and things like that. So know that student debt is very different than other kinds of debt. But again, this is not something that I think you guys will need to consider after you leave the Excel Center. But I do want you guys to know about it, to know what loans are, to know what they mean, right? And how they are available to help you get more advanced degrees later on that can help you earn more money, right? You ever hear that term, like it takes money to make money, right? It's kind of that same idea. It's like making an investment. So how do you know if you're eligible for aid, right? We talked about grants, like that free money. So how are you eligible, right? How is all that determined? And so that's determined from your tax information. And so the tax information from the year before is what they use on the FAFSA or the TASFA. So for this year, we need 2019 taxes, right? So that's your tax return, right? There's also something called being independent versus dependent students. So your age determines whether or not you would have to use your parents' tax information or not, right? So we talked about, okay, so we need taxes. We need our tax return in order to do these applications, right? But sometimes you're going to be required to not only have your tax information, but your parents' tax information, right? So if you are considered to be a dependent student, you're going to need both your parents and yours, right? Don't let that make you feel nervous though. If you're like, but I don't know who I don't talk to my parents, or, I don't file taxes because I don't work, all of those things, we can work with you on. It's not necessarily like you can't do the application itself. But knowing if you're dependent versus independent is really important, right? And so there's a lot of factors here that can make you independent. Even if you're under the age of 24, for example, and you have a child, you're considered to be an independent student, okay? So if you're someone that wants to do FAFSA this year, we will have a kind of one pager for you to determine your status, right? Whether you're independent or dependent. And so at the end of this presentation, I will make sure to share that out with you guys. This presentation was intended to just be kind of informational. And so I didn't want to get really technical on the independent versus dependent because there's so many factors. If you have kids, that's a factor. If you're married, that's a factor. If you were ever in foster care or if you were ever considered to be homeless, that's a factor, right? So I can't sit here and tell you guys based off of my presentation today, if you're independent or dependent, right? That is something that we would discuss when we're doing financial aid with you and prior to that, right? But like I said, don't let that part keep you from trying to do these applications. There's lots of little tricks and tips that we can work with you on, so just hang in there. The main thing is that just know that you have to have your tax information to complete it. Right. The other thing about this is that you apply every year that you're in school. So like if we did an application with you right now, and then you started to attend college in August of next year, you would then reapply, right, in October again, right? That application opens up every year on October 1st. So you can reapply every year. That's how you continue getting financial aid. So remember that FAFSA, TASFA, it's not a one-time only thing. You got to continue to apply for it every year. And then what's kind of great about this is that your financial situation might change year to year, right? Maybe in 2019, you made less money, right? Or maybe, and you'll make more money next year, right? You don't know. But what's kind of nice is that because you reapply, they're looking at your current finances. So they're going to be able to see that. Your eligibility for aid will change based off of your financial situation. Oops. So the main thing that we're trying to look for is the Pell Grant, right? So when you apply in this, say you apply this fall and you're going to go to school next year, whether it be a certification program or college, we really want to take advantage of the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is going to be like the #1 pool of money that they're getting all this financial aid from. So when we're like, hey, the money's first come, first serve, they're really talking about these federal Pell Grants, right? The Pell Grant is, you'll see like other Texas grants sometimes on your financial aid package, but the Pell Grant is really kind of what we're applying for, right? Remember that we don't really want to take out loans our first 2 years. So we're really trying to see, am I eligible to receive the Pell Grant, right? That is the goal. For the FAFSA, sorry, for the TASFA, yeah, guys, hang in there with me. It's a lot of acronyms. Okay, TASFA is not awarded a Pell Grant because a Pell Grant is federal. So for TASFA, you're going to be awarded state aid. And so that's going to look like the Texas grants. And so Texas grants look a little bit different. Again, if you are a TASFA student, then I really do recommend that you contact me just so that you're on my radar. And that way I can kind of walk through it a little bit more with you. There's a whole lot more information with TASFA. And so the goal was to not overwhelm you today, but definitely contact me if that's something that you qualify for. Okay. So when we're looking at the Pell Grant, there's some really amazing ways that you can use it. And so I want y'all to look over on the right-hand side of my presentation. I want you to see how I have these examples. So the Pell Grant can go really far. Like I said, tuition at Austin Community College for the full year is $2,550, right? So if you look at this Pell Grant, it's higher than that. So if I were to be awarded a Pell Grant of $6,345, I would actually receive more money to go to school than what I owe, right? So it's actually like the opposite of a loan, right? Where you have to pay this money back. Like you're going to have money awarded to you, and you're going to have money not only for tuition, but for your educational expenses. So you're going to have extra funds to go towards maybe gas money to get to school every day, right? Your textbooks, maybe a computer if you don't have one, right? If we look at the difference of these two, that leaves us with about $2,000 to $3,000 to be able to support you being in school, right? So when students look at this for the first time, it really helps them understand, wow, like not only are you going to have your tuition paid for, but you're going to have some extra funds to use. And that can be so supportive as a student. At Peloton U, what's really cool is if you qualify for the Pell Grant, right? It covers the entire cost of tuition and fees through Peloton U. So you will not pay anything out of pocket. Now you won't get a refund like you would at ACC, right? But you are able to actually get an entire bachelor's degree without any debt, or an associate's degree. Remember at Peloton U, you can get a more advanced degree. So that is really, really cool. Like they are really doing college in such a different way. And most schools are not that way, right? But they are really understanding of who adult students are and what they need. So that's fantastic. I added another school on here just to show you guys, like I'm just trying to give you guys examples. So if you look at like tuition at Texas State Technical College, which is a college that it's like through Texas State, but they do more certifications. Their tuition for the year is $5,877. So if you got the Pell Grant, that would cover your full year there, right? So I'm only putting this out there that way you guys can understand that the Pell Grant can go a long way, right? And there's no way to know if you're eligible for the Pell Grant until you apply. So once you apply for a FAFSA, we're going to know what your EFC or your estimated family contribution, even though it says family, it's for independent students too. And we'll know right then and there if you qualify for the Pell Grant. If your EFC is 0, that means that you qualify. Now, I don't know if every one of you will qualify for the Pell Grant. FAFSA and TASFA is a very individual thing. Because they're using your tax information, that's how they're determining that eligibility. It's based off of your yearly income. So like I said, I will know more about your eligibility once we complete the application. I will say that when I've done FAFSA with students from the Excel Center, most of them have been able to qualify for the Pell Grant. I don't like making any generalizations because everybody will have a different experience with this. But when I'm working with you and when we're doing it, I'll be able to give you more answers then. So just kind of a heads up on that. The other thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys is that you have to maintain what they call SAP, which is Satisfactory Academic Progress. You'll see SAP a lot. So basically, you don't really want to just accept your grants on a whim and just like fail your classes, because there will be repercussions for that, right? What will happen is, you know, the people who loaned you the money are like, hey, like, you're not really like taking advantage of this. You know, you're not passing your classes. So we don't really know if we want to give you more free money, right? Like if you gave someone a bunch of free money and then they didn't do anything with it, you know, you might want it back too. But really, you don't really want to just like jump into ACC without having some thought put in first, right? So really only attend college if you're motivated to pass your classes. If that's not a motivation for you right now, I don't recommend you attend. because what can happen is they can put you on a probationary thing where you cannot receive any more Pell Grants until you start making good grades, right? So they can put all these different kinds of consequences on you that make it a lot harder for you to achieve your goals, right? And they're not saying that you have to pass every class. They're saying that you have to pass 75% of your classes. So if I was enrolled in if I was enrolled in 4 classes, which is full-time, I could fail one of them, but I could not fail more than one, right? So that's just something I wanted you guys to know about. You definitely want to make an educated decision when you go to ACC and be motivated, because you don't want to lose that access to free money. So there's a few different standards to SAP. A lot of it's, for the grade point average, you just need to have a cumulative of a 2.0 or higher. So that's for ACC classes in general. This is actually not so bad to maintain, guys. It doesn't require all A's or B's. I think you can actually get, I'm not very good at calculating GPA, but I know that this is pretty much doable for most people. So don't let that deter you. And you have to complete, it says 67% of attempted credits. So for example, you can't start out, right? If I was enrolled in 12 credits, but I withdrew from 6 of them, I withdrew from like 50% of the classes that I attempted. And so they don't want you to do that. They really want you to schedule your classes and stick with them and pass those classes. The other thing is that you have to kind of work towards your degree. This is not such a bad thing, really. It's something that a lot of people, I wouldn't say they'll run into this too much, just because you want to finish your program in a realistic time is what they're trying to say, right? So like if an associate's degree requires that I get 60 credits, they want you to complete that within 90 credits. So they don't want you to go over half the time it takes to be in school. And they say what that's called is a 150% maximum time frame, right? So basically they don't want you to take longer than double the time, right? They just want to make sure that you finish your degree within a realistic time frame, which is what you want as well. So like all of these things here are things that you want to be successful in college. Satisfactory academic progress is not a barrier. It really isn't. It's just what we want to make sure that you guys are aware of prior to attending college. And again, that's just really because this is your time, right? This is the time that you're spending. Your time is really, really important. And so all we're saying is make that time worth it and do the best you can. And ACC gives you a lot of support to pass your classes. They really do. So making the decision to attend college is tough, guys. You are not alone and you do not need to decide all of this alone. And so if you're interested in college, if you're interested in certification programs, talk to your life coach. Talk to your teachers, talk to me. We are all here for you. And it's definitely not something that you feel like you have to feel like is all on your shoulders, right? We don't want you guys feeling overwhelmed. So one other thing to keep in mind is that there is no harm in applying and not attending. So like you can do all the FAFSAs all you want, all the TASFAs, but if you don't apply to college or if you don't attend college, nothing happens. There's no penalty, right? So that's what's really beautiful about it is like you're not signing your name on the dotted line for life or anything like that. All you're doing is giving yourself that financial option. Like, what if you decide at the end of the year that like, I really want to do this program at ACC. If you do not do FAFSA now, you won't have that Pell Grant to help you pay for it, right? So again, we're just opening up options for you. Also, I wanted you guys to know that your information that we give to TASFA and FAFSA is not shared to any other institutions like banks or credit reports or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that at all. And they do not share your information with anybody. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. So even if you're not sure, I still want you to apply because I want you to have as many opportunities available to you as possible. Okay, and so we talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to go over it again. So deadlines for financial aid are harsh, guys. Actually, deadlines in college in general are harsh. Like they don't really give you, a whole lot of flexibility. And remember that you're applying a year before you attend. They don't make it really hard on you. I know that, but we're here to help. So for you can apply in the fall of 2020 right now, and you can also apply next year in the fall of 2021. We really do want to get these applications in the fall, as they're kind of like as soon as possible. I had students apply in January and February, and they were okay. But like I said, I just say get first in line. I mean, it can't hurt, and I'm definitely here to help you complete the applications. So I'm going to have workshop dates to come. So I will be sending out, I want to create a flyer, and I will also include a lot of what documents you need to bring in and all that stuff. So I will be able to share that out in the next couple weeks. So please stay tuned. We are working to reopen the campus for term 2. We've got a lot of stuff in the works. And so I'm kind of in the planning stage of figuring out how can I get students in to do this application, because it can take a really long time for me to do it individually with students on Zoom, right? So I'm trying to think of ways, I'm trying to get creative here. But if you have questions, or if you're very unsure, or if you really want to do it, just please let me know. It's still really good for me to have you on my radar. Yeah, and if you graduate at the end of the year, please apply, give yourself those opportunities. And if you graduate sometime next school year, so if you have another year and a half here at the Excel Center, then you're going to want to apply next year in the fall of 2021. So you have options, which is really nice. I also wanted to make a plug for Foundation Communities. Guys, they do everything and they are fantastic. So if you are someone that needs help doing your taxes, if you are just needing help in general with the application process, you will have support at the Excel Center, but sometimes it's really good to go there because they can give you a lot of other support too. So they have an entire program dedicated to help students in college, and that's called College Hub. And so you would actually have someone who's kind of providing some case management in regards to college and career, which is really cool. And they have bilingual opportunities too. So if you're more comfortable speaking Spanish, another great opportunity. And they help a lot too with financial aid. I think they have other ways to help you with financial aid. It's definitely worth looking into if you're someone that really wants to go to college and needs that extra support. I highly recommend you go to them. And I've referred students there who have issues with their taxes. Maybe they hadn't filed taxes in some time and need some help with that, or have some questions, really technical questions with taxes, and they can help with that as well. I'm going to show you all the website. I'm just going to go here. So they are called the Prosper Centers, the College Hub. And so this is Foundation Communities. This is their website. You'll know you're at the right place if you see this little emblem here, Foundation Communities. So if I scroll down, you are actually able to go ahead and make an appointment online, and they are doing remote appointments right now. So just keep that in mind, but it's kind of nice. You guys are already used to doing Zoom anyway. So it's a Zoom call with someone from there who can really kind of provide really individualized services. And there's also a phone number as well that you can call if you prefer, which I included here. And I will definitely make sure that this presentation is posted on your Google Classroom so you guys can access that information. They're a really cool program. Well, guys, I was able to get through it, which is awesome. Let me know if you have any questions. Now is the time. I know that I presented a lot of information and just want to have a chance to open it up to see if you guys have any questions.
So there were a couple questions in chat as you were going through. One of them, Adrima asked a good question that might not really be something in your wheelhouse, but it's kind of similar to what you're talking about. She's asking about for people interested in the armed forces. I know they have their own versions of financial aid to help people graduate college if they're gonna enroll in the military. I don't know if you know a little bit more.
I do.
About that, if you want to do like a really brief.
Yeah. So one of the biggest benefits, in my personal opinion, again, it's personal opinion, but I think one of the biggest benefits of joining the military is that you get a lot of support financially to attend college. So after you complete your like 4 years, or what is the word for that? After you complete your service. Yeah. After you complete it, you are able to receive something called the GI Bill. And the GI Bill is basically what it is they pay for everything. Woo! Like really, like they do. Like you can actually use your GI Bill at a university level. You can use it at ACC, and it covers the cost of tuition and some. So they give you not only money for tuition, but they give you money to live off of. Kind of in that same way, I was like, look how cool it is to go to ACC with a Pell Grant, because you get that refund, right? And you can use that refund however you need to support yourself. So the GI Bill is fantastic, and it actually can extend to your kids, I think, through the Hazelwood Act. And so, for example, like if your mom or dad were in the military, sometimes they have specific funds for their children to go to school. So that is actually one of the kind of higher level big benefits of being in the military. Just keep in mind that you have to finish your service before you can use the GI Bill, right? So you still have to make that commitment in time to do that. Now, another thing that people don't really understand fully always, which I can understand why, you can actually join the military after going to college, and you end up in a higher rank based off of your education. So you don't have to start out, like if I were to get a bachelor's degree and then I joined the military, I would be able to join at a higher level rank. So I wouldn't be at the very bottom. I could actually join in at like a level that takes a few years to get to, just because I have that higher education. Good question.
Cool. Let's see, another good question. Adrima says, thank you for the good info.
Of course, Adrima. Thank you for asking questions.
So I know you said before you didn't want to get into too much specifics about like what kind of tax information will lead you to a good Pell Grant. But Mohammed's asking, and I was wondering if you can give, if you had to give a best guess for what type of annual income somebody could have and still be likely to qualify for at least part of a Pell Grant.
Yes. And he mentioned something I didn't mention earlier, which is you can get partial eligibility, right? So it's a lot of this gets so complicated. So if they say my EFC or my family contribution is $1,000, right? So the government looked at my information and they said, Carolyn and her family can pay $1,000 towards her education. Remember that Pell Grant was $6,000, right? Let me go back. $6,000. So then I would deduct my EFC of $1,000 and I would receive $5,345. So yes, your EFC impacts your aid, and you can get partial aid depending on your EFC. Now, I wish so much, Samyan, that I could give you a for sure answer, but I can't. Because I could, for example, earn $45,000 per year, but what if I have 6 people in my household, right? That's where things get different. So I don't know a lot about your financial situation. I don't know how many people are in your household. And so that is why it's harder for me to do it. I will be very honest with you guys. I've done many of these to the point where when I look at your tax information, I will kind of tell you. And we will, if we're doing FAFSA, we will know immediately what your EFC is. So that's one thing that's really cool, is that there's no waiting game. If we do your financial aid application early and I know what your EFC is, I can kind of give you a like a 90% sure answer to that. So yeah, I wish I could tell you more. I just have to look at everything in person.
Gotcha. Rachel Cardenas wants to know if she can set up a meeting to call you sometime tomorrow. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, got my cell. Yeah, I tried to call her earlier today. Yeah, call me, Rachel, for sure. I've got appointments in the morning, so you'd be best to call me like mid-afternoon, like anywhere from like 2 to 4 would be ideal. Just text me when you're free.
Right. And then Roberto has a really good question that kind of ties a lot of stuff together.
Okay.
I'm wondering, and this would probably be something that you and Jeremy could talk with him more about in our one-on-one, but how do you know what sort of path that you should take regarding whether or not you want to go to college or ACC or get a certification? How do you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would just kind of start out by saying the answer kind of comes in time, and it kind of goes with what your needs are. So like when I talked in my first presentation, I was like, a lot of times our decision for our career path depends on the support we have at home, right? So from what I know about Excel Center students, and I'm not generalizing, I'm mainly just speaking from experience of doing life coaching for 2 years, that to come back to school takes a lot of sacrifice, that you're putting a lot of stuff on hold, and that you guys have barriers that don't exist for like students who are 18, right? Like students that are 18, they may not have like full-fledged families that they're having to care for, right? So they have more flexibility to be able to go into like a 2-year or 4-year program and study. Now, for some of our students, I think personally that many of you guys are kind of needing to go into the workforce to be able to support your family, right? So I think for many Excel Center students, the time commitment is huge, right? So certification programs are shorter and allow you to start working faster. You're also narrowing down your skill set. And so it's a little bit easier to apply for a job when you have a very specific skill set, right? So the answer is really going to depend on how much time can you spend in school? Is studying for 2 more years to maybe go get a bachelor's, to maybe go get a master's? Maybe that isn't realistic for you right now. Maybe it will be realistic like when your kids are older, or, when you can have a little bit more financial stability to be able to do those things that are more extracurricular, right? So it's going to depend on the needs of you and your family. And a lot of it's like, can I make that time commitment? Because remember, with the satisfactory academic progress, we don't want to be just attending college on a whim. Like we want to really attend college in a very serious way. And so I think personally, if you're interested in college, I still think a certification program is good because it will get you in the workforce. It allows you to work in a professional environment and gain that work experience that employers want, right? And if you decided that you wanted to go to school, well, now you have a really nice paying job, right? With benefits maybe. So that way, maybe you could take classes at night, right? Maybe you could take on a little bit extra. a lot of you guys are balancing your job and school already, right? So what would the difference be in college, right? I mean, in the sense of a lot of you guys are already able to balance these things. So you'll be surprised at how much you can actually accomplish. You know, it's really just a matter if you have that motivation or not, you know what I mean? And some people just want to start working, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, really, the whole reason you go to college is so you can find a good job, right? But what we talked about last time is sometimes going to college doesn't equal a good job, right? So you have to think about, like, what do I like to do and how can I make money? Into one. Sorry, it's a long answer. It's going to depend. And Norberto, you and I are going to get a chance to dive straight into a lot of that.
And one thing I would add to that, that was a really good strategy that you brought up when you talked last week. Is if there's a specific job that you know you want at some point in the future, like if it's what your boss or your boss's job is now, then go look up job postings on Indeed and see what the requirements are for that job. Like if you know that your dream job someday is to be a NASA engineer working on rocket ships, go look up what sorts of requirements they're asking for in that job. And that'll let you know, hey, to get this dream job that I want, eventually I'm going to need to have at bare minimum these degrees, these requirements. And some of them might just say associate's degree in biology or 1-year certification in electrician. So knowing what kind of job that you want can really help you focus on what types of certifications or degrees do you need in order to be competitive for that job.
Yeah, that's like such good advice, Mr. Stanley. And like, I kind of wished I had done that more. When I was, yeah, I just didn't do that. Like I got my degree in social work, and I really had to get a higher level of education to make it worth it. And it was really tough for me to find a job after I got my bachelor's degree, because my position requires a master's. Like there's just not a lot of jobs for social workers with only a bachelor's. So I ran into that, right? And it wasn't necessarily ideal, because then I had to go to grad school, and then that costs a lot more money, right? And so if my goal, because I struggled a lot growing up, like I wanted to make money, like that's why I went to college, right? But college doesn't actually equal that. And then other times too, it's like the time it takes, you know, like if I could have done things differently, I would have gone back and gotten a certification. And that way, whenever I was going through my bachelor's program and my master's program, I could have worked the entire time in a position that was going to give me experience. So I could have not only had my degrees at the end, but less debt and more experience. And I could have done things like not go to school full time. Maybe it would take a little bit longer to graduate, but I would have done it with less debt. And like a lot of colleges are doing things a little bit differently. Like UT, for example, if your parents make under $100,000, you get your tuition paid for now. Like, I don't know, there's a lot, like colleges know this is a problem, and there's a lot out there. And honestly, for adult learners, there are scholarships, there are opportunities. So like, if you're passionate about something, do it. And honestly too, like one thing that we hadn't really discussed as much as I would like prefer is college is a lot of personal exploration, but also it can really help you increase your self-esteem and self-confidence, right? And so that's something that seems really lofty, but that matters a lot when you apply for jobs. It matters like more than you think. Like the way you perceive yourself and the way that you carry yourself and how you feel about your accomplishments can make or break things.